Hey, this is Mrs. Reichelt. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and talk about has to do with the major functions of the urinary system, and we'll go through some of the blood flow as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so the major purpose of the urinary system is to rid the body of nitrogenous waste, toxins, as well as drugs. So nitrogenous wastes are going to be anything that contains a nitrogen. So these are going to be things like ammonia, bicarbonates, and what else? So you have urea and urine and uric acid. All of those things are going to be filtered out and they're going to turn into urine or urea and ultimately urine. So you're going to get rid of toxins as well as drugs. So the major functions of the urinary system is that it's going to maintain a balance of all homeostatic mechanisms in the body. So the urinary system probably doesn't get enough credit for the huge job that it actually has to do. So the first thing is that it deals with water balance. So I'm not just talking about water balance inside the kidneys, but really water balance inside the blood, water balance inside all of the fluids in your body. Electrolyte balance has to do with the amount of salts. So it deals with electrolyte balance. It also deals with acid-base balance in the blood. So using the water balance, it'll help to act almost as a buffer system, as a pH buffer system for your blood as well. It also deals with blood pressure. So for example, if your blood pressure is low, if your blood pressure is low, that's probably part of it is probably because you have less water. So if your kidneys or if your urinary system increases the amount of water that you put into your blood, then your blood pressure will probably elevate a little bit. And then the opposite is true as well. Another function of the urinary system is that it is responsible for initiating red blood cell production. So it is important to know that red blood cell production is actually formed in the red marrow of the skeletal system, but what's actually responsible for initiating that will be from the urinary system. And then it also helps to activate vitamin D. So the urinary system really does a variety of different functions inside of the body. So here are the major organs that we're going through. The first one are the kidneys. These are probably the famous ones. So the kidneys are these little bean-shaped reddish organs right here. Okay, sitting on top of the kidneys are the adrenal glands. So these kind of yellowishy ones are the adrenal glands. The ureters are the tube. Basically, it's a tube that's going to connect the kidney, I'm going to draw black over it, to the urinary bladder. So you have two kidneys, you have two ureters. So you have a ureter on both the left and the right side, and it's going to be basically just the way to get that fluid from your kidney to your bladder. And then your bladder is right here. Okay, your bladder is just that hollow sac-filled organ that will fill up with urine, or it won't have any urine in it. And then the urethra is right here. The urethra is similar to the ureter, but it's going to act as the passageway to get from the bladder to the exterior of the body. So the location of the kidneys here, here's a posterior picture of this person here, and it kind of shows you where the kidneys are. So they're basically where your 12th rib is. So they're against the dorsal body wall, which means that they're towards the back of the body. They're at the level of the T12. Remember, that's the thoracic vertebrae to lumbar 3 vertebrae. And then the right kidney is slightly lower than the left due to the position of the liver. The major kidney features here. So the renal hilum, this is a medial indentation where there are several structures that enter or exit the kidney, such as the ureters, the renal blood vessels, and also nerves. So the renal hilum, basically, here I'm going to circle it right here. It's right here, and it is right in here. Basically, it's where all the important structures are going to exchange their materials. And then, oh, I already told you that the adrenal gland sits on top of the kidneys right there. So within the actual kidney, there are three major regions. The first one is the renal cortex. The renal cortex is the outermost part. So this part, I'm just kind of drawing around, kind of the outermost part of the kidney. Then you have the renal medulla. The renal medulla is the inside cortex. So the medulla acts up as just the inside, and then the renal pelvis are the inner collecting tubes. So the inner pelvis is just going to be this little collecting tube right in here. I'm going to kind of draw that out. Okay, so everything that's kind of in black is that renal pelvis. So that's kind of the major three regions. In addition, you have the renal or the medullary pyramids. These are the triangle areas. So if you see here, you kind of see some triangles. And if I go back to that other diagram, you can see, let's see, I'll erase that. You can kind of see those pyramids as well. So those pyramids kind of in another picture. So these are the renal pyramids because they're triangularly shaped. Then you have the renal columns, which are the extensions of cortex-like material that are going inward. So the renal columns are these right here. So these are the columns. And then the pyramids are sort of these kind of pinkishy areas right there. And then the last part you have are right in here. And these are the cup-shaped structures that funnel urine towards the renal pelvis. And remember that renal pelvis is right in here. All right, and our last little slide here about the kidneys is the blood supply. So the 1/4 of the total blood supply of the body passes through the kidneys each minute. So that's a lot of fluid and a lot of blood supply that's going through the kidneys. The renal artery provides each kidney with an arterial blood supply. The renal artery is divided into a couple smaller arteries as well. So you have the interlobar arteries, the arcuate arteries, and the cortical radiate arteries as well. And then you have some veins. Remember, the veins are going to take blood and return it back to the heart. So you have the cortical veins, same thing, you have the arcuate veins, the interlobar veins, and the renal vein. There are also no segmental veins. That's kind of you don't really have to know that for your test, but just to be aware of that, I would maybe look at this diagram right here because it's trying to show you, starting from the heart, how blood is actually finding its way to the, not the lungs, I almost said the lungs, how it's finding its way to the kidneys, and then where gas exchange is happening, so the glomerulus, and all of these little capillaries, and we'll talk about those in another video, but then ultimately how that deoxygenated blood gets back to the heart. So it's kind of, we're starting at the heart and ending at the heart. So that basically is the summary of the urinary system and a little bit about the kidneys, and I hope you found that helpful.